Well, on that note, it's now time for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning. It's time for Dr. Constance to light up our screens and lead us in some heated debate. Yesterday was something, wasn't it? Dr. Constance,
yes,
you have the floor.
Light up the screens, indeed. And you lead with that, Bimbai. We enjoy joining us from Lagos. So how are you today?
Very well, thank you. Very well, thank you. Fighting the good fight. It's midweek, as Benga said earlier. So, the closer to the weekend, the better.
Already talking about weekend?
Fighting the good fight on a Wednesday. That's good. That's good. I like that. Yeah. I like that. Good morning, Yolanda and Benga.
Always a delight to be here.
Constance.
Yes, yeah. I hope you guys are doing well.
Yeah, I'm sure
Absolutely.
there's so much in the offing.
There is a lot. In fact, this
more
morning,
than usual today.
Yeah, today, yes. It was difficult to pick the stories to discuss. There was so much. There was so much happening in the news that we had to make an editorial judgment. So we have a package for you. So if you're just joining us this morning, hello there and welcome to the program. We'll be looking at the stories that are shaping the agenda for you today in the paper review. Let's kick off with this day newspaper. Broad national contest appears across several papers today. We have stories covering economic reforms, including monetary policy decisions, security and denial of ransom payments, leadership changes, political activities and attacks feature prominently. In this day, Inspector General of Police Kayode Egbetokun bows out, citing family considerations as Tunji Disu is named in acting capacity. On security, federal government denies that AFP report alleging 2 billion naira was paid in ransom to secure release of students of St. Mary's Catholic School, Niger State. Moving on to the economy, encouraged by disinflation, forex stability, others, CBN cuts MPR to 26.5% from 27%. Vanguard reports on how former presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, and Chief John Odigi Oyegu escaped assassination in Benin yesterday, with a ton of condemnation from Nigerians. U.S. Congress recommends measures to end Christian persecution in Nigeria. And Tinubu tells opposition that elections are not won on social media. Phone tapping charge, DSS can't try me over casual remarks on TV, El Rufai tells courts, and is seeking 2 billion naira damages. The Guardian writes about U.S. escalating pressure on Nigeria as African firms up hub in Ghana. Ghana is just beside us here, so we have the U.S. at our back. And federal government dragged to ECOWAS court over tax law alterations. CBN rules out extending recapitalization deadline, lowers interest rate by 0.5%. Daily Independent leads with report that 2027 could see Nigeria's lowest voter turnout ever. And on the economy, 20 banks meet new capital thresholds, while 13 are in the final stages. But the judge asked Tinubu to call Wike to order before it's too late. Leadership focuses on the fact that 8 deputy inspector generals of police may likely be shown the door following Tunji Disu's appointment as new inspector general of police. Gumi knocks U.S. congressional report insists on Sharia law in Nigeria. Keyamo, Lagos Airport fire destroyed Nimet equipment. Terminal 2 be demolished. EFCC arraigns ex-Nigerian Railway MD for alleged 165.6 million naira and $385,000 fraud. New Telegraph, executive order direct attack on PIA threatens industry stability, according to Pengasin. Wike stands expelled, can't speak for PDP, says Bode George. Daily Sun says U.S. Congress has now received the report on persecution of Christians in Nigeria and harnesses a course for emergency revival of Igbo language, warns of possible extinction. Electricity crisis, Southeast lost 28 billion naira in 3 months, says the Southeast Electricity Consumers Association. Now moving on to the international headlines, the main highlights today are political and legal storm around Peter Mandelson and renewed scrutiny of Andrew. Domestic concerns about healthcare access and NHS pressures future as well. Economic anxiety globally, disrupting markets, and government action on online safety and regulation. Now let's see the Guardian newspaper, which leads with controversy around Peter Mandelson, who criticized the Metropolitan Police after being detained because officers believed he might leave the UK during the investigation. His lawyers say he had been cooperating with authorities and argued the claim that he posed a flight risk is unfounded. It also has a report on Zelensky appealing to Trump to visit Kyiv on the eve of 4 years anniversary of that war. The Daily Telegraph goes further to note that Mandelson surrendered his passport and was questioned before being bailed while denying any wrongdoing. The Daily Star has a rather theatrical take to this case, calling Mandelson the Prince of Darkness. The same flight risk story leads in the Times. The Independent front page highlights MPs forcing the government to release files about how Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor was appointed UK trade envoy in 2001. This move, of course, comes amid more scrutiny over his links to Jeffrey Epstein. The Sun has a funny take on Andrew, asking him to get off his high horse, as it reports that ex-prince is banned from riding. Newspaper covers ministers rebuking Andrew, calling him rude and arrogant. Daily Mirror carries a warning from former Prime Minister Gordon Brown. In a key by-election, Brown urges voters to reject Reform UK, arguing its policies could revive austerity and weaken protections for workers and renters. Daily Express leads on a major public service issue. Nearly half of adults reportedly delayed or avoided contacting a GP last year. Poll findings suggest worsening NHS standards and growing difficulty securing appointments. Finally, Financial Times has the main international economic story as investors are shifting toward asset-heavy sectors such as energy, utilities, and shipping. Now, let's see what the stories mean for the average person. Returning to this day newspaper, where Inspector General of Police Kayode Egbetokun has resigned and Tunji Disu has been named in acting capacity. Egbetokun was said to have cited pressing family considerations. He was serving a 4-year term that would have ended in June 2027. The president convened a meeting of the Nigeria Police Council to consider the appointment of Disu in line with the provisions of the Police Act 2020. Who is Tunji Disu and what's expected of him? And will this simply be another routine reshuffle, or should Nigerians expect a real shift in policing strategy and the fight against rising insecurity across the country? Benga.
Well, very interesting change of guard, you would say. We've seen Assistant Inspector General Tunji Disu, who was formerly River State Commissioner of Police. You know that River State is a flashpoint, and before he was later redeployed as FCT Commissioner, he was the head of the intelligence response team, and he has had several strategic formations within the police force, coming at the heels of his predecessor who ran the police force amid tenure elongation controversy based on the Nigeria Police Act 2020 that was hurriedly amended because he was appointed in 2023, and he was meant to retire by September 2024. But we saw what the National Assembly hurriedly did, and that extended his tenure to 2027. So amidst inexplicable circumstance, we had two conflicting stories about he tendering based on pressing family consideration, and some also said the president asked him to resign. Anyway, that will be a subject for future debate and investigation. So looking at Tunji Disu, what will be the task before the new acting Inspector General of Police? We have the cradle of the police force in Nigeria still under despicable situation, under very deteriorating situation, and you wonder that how do we intend to get the best of people, of personnel that would maintain a security, civil relations with Nigeria, that will protect, that will drive such a strategic task coming from that, if I would call it a very very disturbing credo that's talking about the police training center, which the National Executive Council recently, just towards the end of last year, approved 100 billion for the renovation of all the police training centers, and about 2.6 billion for consultancy charges. But everything ended in the pipeline dream. So we'll be expecting a much driven political will from Tunji Disu to address that. The issue of state police is also there. We expect him to be very honest enough for him to push for that bill. And also the issue of the police welfare is in a state of so much askance, if you ask me. So there is a need to also drive this agenda. Recently, the president announced the state of emergency and announced a mass recruitment of 50,000 additional policemen. We don't know how much has been done. Everything is left hanging. So Tunji Disu, as a new acting Inspector General of Police, has his work cut out for Nigerians.
Indeed, and you know,
Yes,
to add,
he certainly does. If I may just chip in very briefly.
Okay, go ahead.
So, sorry, let me just go ahead very briefly. You know, as you're talking about welfare and especially the issue of morale, I think, you know, it's important for us to highlight the fact that, you know, several DIGs have been skipped to handpick Tunji Disu for this appointment. Now, while many people have applauded his profile and the caliber of officer that he is, there are concerns that you now have a whole, you know, high-ranking community of DIGs who may be forced to resign. What does this do for the morale of those, you know, members of the police force who are looking for career progression, who have been working diligently in the hopes that, you know, their time is coming up next? So it sort of continues this culture that we've seen of skipping those who are sort of next in line in the hierarchy and picking somebody. And it has now sort of inflamed some conversations around ethnicity as well, because people are saying, well, you know, is it because there are certain individuals within the DIGs that didn't fit the ethnic profile that is preferable to this administration? And I close very quickly by saying that Tunji Disu is turning 60 in April. So this will now be the second time in a period of just 5 years or less where we are now seeing somebody who is reaching the age of retirement. Yes, the amended Police Act does allow for him to finish his tenure beyond the age of resignation, but the concerns are, is this the new culture that we're now going to be looking for people who are at the brink of retirement age, you know, and extending their careers, which again speaks to the issue of career progression and what that does to the morale and the discipline and the overall conduct of the police force.
Okay. Indeed, the politicization of the police force. Not only the police force, you have that also happening in the military when the president has to pick, you know, new officers to fit certain positions. And to the ethnicity that you also talked about, the president has been hobbled by that criticism, but he continues to move ahead with that. Tunji Disu, like you said, has his work cut out for him. The police force has a very poor reputation, and he would have to see how to clean that up, including failures and misconduct of police officers. So let's give him a break and see how he's able to manage his time there. Moving on to another story in this day newspaper. The federal government denies paying ransom for release of Catholic school children kidnapped from Papiri, Niger State last year. An Agence France Presse AFP investigation had revealed the government paid Boko Haram terrorists 2 billion naira with up to 40 million naira per head, which is about $7 million. Minister of Information and National Orientation Mohammed Idris described it as false and baseless, as well as speculative reports. Yolanda, let me come to you. Do you think this is a case of conflicting information, or is this the public not being told the full truth about what the authorities are doing? Because Perhaps Agence France-Presse now has to, step up and say whether this report is false. I mean, who do you really believe?
In such important conversations, Dr. Constance, it's important that the FG should actually be leading this narrative and not reacting to it as we are seeing. Nigerians deserve to hear from the government, and not in a way that we are seeing. We shouldn't be getting all of this breaking news, so to speak, from an outside source. And when there's highly controversial things circulating, such as how this money was given out and all of that, it
was really detailed.
Absolutely. Yes. The federal government needs to give clarity instead of just coming out to say that, no, this is not the case, because it makes the federal government look weak when a foreign agency is now giving details that people have never heard. Now, to tie this in a little bit with what the U.S. Congress report on persecution said, this is a clear indication that if you do not write your narrative, if you do not make your rules, somebody else will do it. If you are not deliberate about what is done in your country, what is done in your industry, what is done in different sectors of a country, somebody else is going to come in and write the rules. So now the FG needs to come back and give a detailed explanation to Nigerians of what exactly transpired in areas of terrorism, banditry. These are the areas that have brought us to where we are now, especially with this CPC designation. And if we want to move forward from such damaging accusations of religious persecution, we need to be able to come forward with narratives and answers to the Nigerian people.
It just creates uncertainty about what is actually going on behind the scenes, because we do know private individuals pay a ransom in this country. We have reports of state governments paying ransom in the country. The federal government denies it has done so. However, the speculations may continue because already it is happening all across Nigeria. And the second thing is that people are asking, okay, if you did not pay ransom, when the students were released, and in other cases last year, nobody was shown as being arrested.
Right.
After that, we didn't see any of the kidnappers arrested and paraded before Nigerians to say, these are the people that committed the crime, and they will be prosecuted, they will be going to jail, they will have their day in court. None of that happened. So when that is the case, people are bound to speculate about what really happened. So, the government, this is in its court. I don't know what's going to happen, but yeah, a lot of speculations about Nigerian and payment of ransom. Let's go to Daily Independent, where we have 20 banks meeting recapitalization requirements, 13 on the way. Does this signal real strength and resilience in the banking sector, or should Nigerians still be concerned about long-term stability of the system, Vimbai?
Well, I think the banking sector has come a very long way and is really one of the flagships of the Nigerian economy. When you look at those factors that contribute to our GDP, the service sector leads in that. And of course, it's, attributed to institutions such as our banks. The recapitalization project, of course, was robust, and it was not an easy project for most banks. However, we see that the majority of them have been able to meet the threshold. But this news was released in the context of the MPC yesterday, as held by the CBN under Olayemi Cardoso, where the announcements were made about the latest monetary policy moves. And of course, the big news was that our interest rate has been cut by 50 basis points. So that's 0.5%. And, there's been a lot of commentary coming out of that, which no less affects the banks as well. What are the comments? People are saying, well, this is a very subtle move. Several analysts had been bullish and had expected that there would be a bigger interest rate reduction. This is given the fact that our statistics currently say that our inflation is coming down drastically. The Naira has also strengthened quite drastically. But when you look at this cautious approach, it also highlights the fact that a lot of the statistics that we see are very well managed statistics and may not necessarily react organic elements on the ground. Why do I say this? Our inflation inflation rate, for example, we've changed how we calculate inflation. Before we used to go for a month, we used to refer to a reference month. Now we refer to an average of 12 months. And this drastically reduces your inflation figure. On the part of the exchange rate, of course, we know that recently the CBN has allowed BDCs, that's a Bureau de Changes, to participate in the forex market again, and we've seen the naira strengthening, coming as strong as 1,300 naira. There's some predictions that it'll get to 1,000 naira. But now the real concerns are what Mr. Cardoso highlighted earlier in the year, which is that we're going to an election year. There's going to be a lot of consumption. There's going to be spending. Money is going to circulate, and we know that that in itself is inflationary. Yes. So I think that this very subtle change is more political. It's to say that, well, you know, as the president said yesterday, we're out of the woods. I think this was the CBN's own way of saying we're out of the woods without really making any significant changes that will shake the market. It's not going to affect how businesses are able to access credit and the high interest rates that the banks are currently charging. And this also affects the banks, if you remember, because a lot of the major corporations are now looking for alternate means to raise capital without going to borrow from the banks. So all in all, bringing these economic stories together, I think the optics look good, but we still need to address some real fundamental issues on the ground to maintain, to improve rather, to sort of go back to an easier cost of living, as opposed to us maintaining this very, very painful stability, if I may call it that.
All right, we'll be watching how this recapitalization prepares the banks to really support the real economy in Nigeria rather than monopolies. On to another a worrying story here. We have in Vanguard newspaper. Former presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, and Chief John Odige Oyegu were attacked in what appeared to be a failed assassination attempt in Benin City, Edo State yesterday. Both of them were members of the opposition African Democratic Congress. According to reports, gunmen opened fire around that gathering of opposition figures and supporters during Olumide Akpata's declaration for ADC, damaging property and raising fears about the safety of political actors and democratic participation. The report says the armed men shot at the gate, riddled several vehicles with bullets, destroying them in the process. They escaped unhurt, but it is worrying and highlights the climate of political tension and insecurity in Nigeria. Such incidents send a troubling message about the risk associated with political engagement and how political competition in Nigeria is conducted with violence and intimidation. Benga, very quick thoughts on that.
It's rather unfortunate, and this smacks of political thuggery, rascality, and gangsterism, if you ask me. We can trace this incident back to July, excuse me, July 2025, when the governor of Edo State made that infamous and very controversial statement that he cannot guarantee the visit or the safe visit of former Governor Peter Obi, who was then the former presidential candidate of the then Labour Party. When you look at that statement, it's very uncalled for. It could have put in a call across to him to explain that, oh, you are a very influential, high-profile figure coming to my state. Protocol demands that you inform me so that I can make adequate preparation. But when you go out to issue, it's no longer procedural. It's now coming out as an abrasive threat, if you ask me. So now, this is another visit, including former Governor Peter Obi, and now this is happening. Even though the APC has also come out to deny this, that it's a replay of an internal crisis happening within the ADC. And we saw pictures of someone arguing that the imperial tendency of the leader of the ADC in Edo State, former Governor John Odige Oyegu, was just too overbearing for them. But I don't think that is very sufficient, because the antecedents are very poignant, if you ask me. They point in a particular direction. So the question is, who is G3 about the ADC's influence in Edo State? So this is quite unfortunate, as it sends fear and real anxiety about what to expect in the build-up towards the 2027 election.
And Winga, this is why many decent Nigerians shy away from politics, because it is viewed as dirty and dangerous. And so you do not want to see opposition figures attacked in this, or anybody, you know, whether it's really members of the ruling party, opposition figures, you do not want to see this kind of thing happening in the country. So a note to the authorities, but we're almost out of time. So let me just share something from the Daily Sun. U.S. Congress has now received the report on persecution of Nigerians or Christians in Nigeria and recommends measures to end Christian persecution. Let me give you some highlights of that report or that measure. It calls for legal reforms, improved policing, and strengthening the criminal justice sector. It also seeks repeal of Sharia and blasphemy laws in Nigeria. It wants audit of effectiveness of aid support to Nigeria. It's demanding programs to allow self-defense of farmers, and seeks Nigeria's divestment from Russian military and measures to counter Chinese influence. We're not able to discuss that, but you can see what the U.S. is asking of Nigeria. On the international scene, we'll take one story: Trump's State of the Union address. Yolanda.
Well, Trump's State of the Union address is always an anticipated, yearly event that happens. And actually, it's a requirement of the U.S. Constitution that the president shall, from time to time, give Congress information on what is happening in the country. Now, having said that, Trump touched on many areas, such as his plans for Iran, his intentions to sort things out diplomatically. But the crux of it all comes from the response of the opposition, which I found quite interesting. Abigail Spanberger, she's Virginia's governor, delivered the Democrats' response, and she said the president, quote, offered no real solutions to our nation's pressing challenges. Now, if looked at critically, Virginia's governor is actually very right. From the reintroduction of Donald Trump, we have seen lots of focus on several different countries, from Venezuela, Nigeria involved there, Russia, the Ukraine war, and now Iran with the nuclear weapons. Now, we have seen very little focus on major U.S. challenges, such as the immigration crackdown that has been going on across the nation, and as well as tearing families apart. Now, as much as Trump received such a round of applause, these sentiments from Virginia's governor, I think, quite stand out as a very big highlight from this speech.
Right. I mean, critics have...
I know we don't have a lot of time. I just want to summarize in a few seconds. I thought a big discussion that emerged, two things, really. The first was Trump celebrating the fact that the World Cup, of course, is going to take place, co-hosted by the United States, Mexico, and Canada. Right. We're looking at the immigration crisis in the U.S. You're looking at the state of the cartels taking over Mexico. It looks like Canada might have to go at it alone. And then finally, Trump now puts a figure to what he's calling the death toll of the Iranian protests at 32,000 killed, which is a hugely disputed figure, because in Iran they're saying only 3,000 people have been killed. Human rights groups are saying that the number is between 5,000 and 30,000. But this number, 32,000, that Donald Trump has used, is saying, many people are saying that this is a number that they're going to use to justify military intervention, and that this was a prelude, of course, with him also talking about how Iran has now developed weapons that can possibly reach the U.S. So a lot of signaling there from the military intervention side.
Okay. Well, there's also critics saying he leaned heavily on political messaging rather than concrete pathways to all the things he has outlined. Well, we'll have to leave it there. Those were your headlines for today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Constance.